Oh, yes, we are live now. Wonderful. So, hi, welcome everyone. My name is Nadia Dubiel, and welcome to Coffee Talk Show. Today, I will be your host. And we actually have a wonderful business chat today with three wonderful speakers, three wonderful ladies. So, can you please introduce yourself, all of you wonderful ladies? Thank you.
Okay, I'll start then. Hi, I'm Brenda Dempsey. I'm a publisher, I'm a coach, I'm an international best-selling author, and I love coming on to these shows because it's all about sharing our wisdom, sharing our knowledge and expertise to help you and to inspire you. I have a 25-year background in education, which comes in very handy indeed.
Wonderful. And Carol Ann, you go ahead.
Okay. Lovely. Good afternoon and good evening or good morning, wherever anyone else is who's listening or maybe listening on in the future. As the writing facilitator, what I do is I support soul-driven entrepreneurs to become more productive with their writing by connecting them with their deeper innate ability to write. But more importantly, they experience free-flowing writing. They experience an unlocking of the writer within so that they get their story written. They get their book written. It's about unmuting that story that's within. And all of that has come about through my own journey of unlocking the writer within. And just in case anybody is interested and wants to get their book written, because you cannot publish what isn't written, I have a Facebook group called Soul Flow, Get Your Book Written. So please join me if you'd like to. I'd like to see you there. But it's an exciting journey, and I'm excited about today's topic as well.
Wonderful. Thank you, Carol Ann. We have another writer in the group. Perfect. That's going to be an amazing show. Lots of creative people. And Sherin, please introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm sherinlovegrove, and I'm an author, transformational coach, and I also a crypto fempreneur. So I help women that suffer with imposter syndrome. So what they do is find it difficult because they have perfection, they procrastinate, and they overgive. So I help them have freedom by learning how to manage and befriend those saboteurs so that they can have the life that they've always meant to live. And part of my background is really recognizing that imposter syndrome happened to me. And so it's part of my story in the way on how I'm able to look at the world in a very different way and help heal people. So that's me right now.
That's beautiful. So yeah, we're gonna have a wonderful storytelling show today. So today's topic is actually how to use story to fuel your business, and this is Brenda's topic. So she's gonna share. So let's all of you please share basically what does it mean to you, the story, why story is so important, and Brenda, maybe why did you pick this topic? And thank you.
Thanks, Nadia. I picked this topic because over the years, from a person who didn't even know she had a story, never mind voice it, to a woman today who encourages other women to voice their story, to awaken their voice, to find their voice, to use their voice, to step into their own power with their voice, make a difference and impact the world with story. And you see in businesses, many women and men don't even bring story into their business. And then they wonder why they're not connecting with their ideal client. They wonder why they're not attracting people to them, because they themselves aren't aware as yet. They haven't been awakened. Because as we said earlier, Nadia, we don't know what we don't know. The power of story it's magical. And if you think about it, we've been telling story round campfires since time began. And story wasn't written in the first place. it was handed down through telling story orally, and it just went down from generation to generation to generation. But of course, today we can write, we can leave legacies in written format, in audio format, in many formats today. So for me, why I chose it was because it's central to the work I do now as a publisher. And like Carol Ann, sometimes people come to us and their stories, they've got the idea for the story, maybe they've not quite written the story. So we can help them with that, into shaping what that book might look like. And one of the things that's very important, that's part of that deep foundation that I spoke about earlier to you, Carol Ann, is doing the golden thread exercise, looking at their lifetime and looking at the stories, the highs and the lows, the positives, and those dark, deep places. And once you awaken that awareness and you're aware of it, then you can use that in a powerful way to influence and to attract and to speak the language of the people you want to serve.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Brenda. And Carol Ann, can you please share why stories are so important?
I'd love to, because it's like, I love what Brenda was saying about them. It's about them going into those highs and the lows and those really dark, deep places. And this is one of the key things that I work with, is actually helping them to go into those dark, deep places, because it's that emotional aspect of their story, because it connects with the reader or potential client. And very often that's where they pull back, because it's too emotional. It makes them vulnerable. And so it's helping them and giving them that space so that they can be vulnerable. They can be open, but also go into that emotional place, but not be taken over by it. It's enabling them to write from that space, become an observer of it and write from it. That's the power of it. And so many people pull back from that. So it is, I get it. It's emotional. It can be painful. It is, as Brenda says, it's a dark, deep place. And also the work that Shireen does about imposter syndrome. Many people think, well, who am I? I don't have a story to tell. Who's going to want to connect with my story? But that's just exactly who needs to write a story. Because even if it impacts just one person and makes a difference to them, that has a ripple effect around the world. So you have a story within you. Everybody does. And it is going to the heart of it and the emotional aspect, those deep, dark places. And knowing that you actually don't need to get stuck in them by writing about them, because it's just writing about them. But it will connect with your audience and your potential client. And that's what storytelling at its best is about.
Beautiful, very poetic language. I really love the way you express yourself, Carol Ann. It's wonderful. Thank you. And Shireen, can you please share your insights?
So as Carol Ann said, imposter syndrome was what I experienced, particularly when I was thinking about writing my story, because I was going to do a self-help book first. And then I realized I'd do the same thing as my first book. And I had to go deeper. And that's when I kind of found out more about imposter syndrome. But I think what is really, really important is to understand that stories take us straight away to that space. They bypass all critical thinking. It's the best way to get to somebody's psyche is through a story. Because what happens is stories, our filters don't come up. And so you can actually tell people things that they may need to hear, and without these filters up. So if you think, we all grew up with stories, fairy tales. Yeah, we all have fairy tales. Every language has myths, legends, fairy tales. And each of those have a way of which we will make meaning of. And we will either choose to look at that story and take it, in the physical, which is often what we've done with the Bible. We take it as a literal story, but maybe it isn't a literal story at all. Maybe there's something deeper. And I think that what often happens is we don't look to think about the story as being the connector between the realm of the creator and us. And when we start, every time we have a conversation with someone, we're living a story. And that's why when someone looks at you really, sort of really skewly and says, I don't understand you, what do? The first thing you do is you create a different kind of story. You'll say, well, okay, if we're talking about someone that has a problem with a sink, you might actually use a metaphor for the sink, yeah? Or you might find another metaphor that would fit with something in the field of that person. So I think the thing is stories are how we connect with human beings, because we are natural storytellers. You watch a child, they live in this thing is real, yeah? And they love stories. They get excited by stories. They live in that moment. And as we get older, we forget how to get back into that story to heal. So for me, I certainly think that when we tell stories so that we can touch the heart of that human being. And we also give them a message that we can see them, we can hear them. And it's so interesting, since I've written my book, the amount of people that have come back to me and told me about things which actually was not quite what my book was written about, but other things triggered for them. And that opened up new worlds for them. So I think it's not just about the story that may be the general theme, but there's often these sub-themes that start to really bring out the attention of others.
Perfect. And so let's get deeper into storytelling and how to awaken your creativity and connect with people. So could you please share how do you write a good business story? What are the key ingredients? Is there like a secret ingredient? And what's the formula, if there is a formula? Brenda, could you go first?
Well, this is the point I wanted to make about story. You see, what happens sometimes when people tell stories is we get caught up in the story, we enact it, and we're reliving it, as already has been said, and that definitely can bring people in on an emotional level with you on the story, and they'll be sitting there going, oh my goodness, that's happened to me. Oh my goodness, I get that. Yeah. I wonder what happens next, and I wonder what she did about it. So the mind begins to raise questions all about the story. Now, controversial or not, I'm not interested in your story, but I am. What I am interested in regards to your story is, what did you learn? What was the pain about? What was the insight? What was the revelations? What were the aha moments? What has that enabled you to do differently? How has it impacted on your thinking? How's it impacting on what you're saying? How do you use that to influence other people who are still enacting out the story? For me, that's the key. The key is the learning. The key is so what? Because I've been part of lots of anthologies, and when you hear the stories, it's like, oh my God, how did you get through that? And all these questions, as I said already, arise in their human psyche. But when you can get people to look back, take themselves out of it, and I think Caroline alluded to this, take yourself actually out of your story and shift the lens and look at it in a totally different way. You can then look at it in a way that is more empowering. You can look at it in a way that, well, that part of my story will reflect this point that I want to make, which could be a point on resilience. It could be a point on determination. It could be a point on perseverance. It could be a point on letting go, a point on acceptance. So when you can build in this different level to your story in your work, in your talks, in your programs, then you will really pull people further in, because they go, she knows, she's been through it. We then go into emotional intelligence and empathy and understanding. There is a certain level of that just hearing a story. But when someone can tell you, well, you know what, this happened to me and this happened to me for a reason, and that reason is, then you're giving permission to other people to look at their story, their adversity, whatever it is, to take you away from it and help you heal. Because when we can use our story to influence, and we can do it without all that emotion, then you know you're on that path to healing. So for me, it's important to know the strength in the adversity, and then we get into the how. So that's the last part of it. But separating the emotion out of the story, taking the emotion out, and going to another level and looking at what you've learned, that is power. That is power. Last night I had my Awaken Your Voice, and the guest speaker, she lost her father at the age of 13. And then she lost two siblings on the same day in a freak accident 2 or 3 years later. Now, obviously, the place that she was in, but the way she spoke about it was so empowering. Yes, that story dragged us all in, and we thought, oh my God, how could you do that? You were only 13, and you know. But the minute she started talking about, she understood why that happened to her and embrace it. So for myself, I went through, my story is I went through an abusive relationship for 16 years and then 4 kids. Now I can see why I went through that relationship and experienced all the trauma that I experienced, because it's making me the woman I am today, sitting here talking strongly with absolute conviction that that's what's important in your story. So it's, what was the point of that story? Find the silver lining and know why you experienced it, because it's all part of your bigger purpose.
Yes, amazing. Just know your why, what inspires you, what motivates you is so important, because it creates that emotional connection with the audience. Beautiful. And Carol, just in case you don't remember what was the question, like how to create a good story for business, what are the ingredients, what is the formula, what is your formula, do you have a formula, what would you advise? Thank you.
Yeah, I think what one of the key things that Brenda spoke about was sort of being clear on what is the message you want to get over, because then you can select one of your stories, because you don't just have one story to tell. You've got lots of stories. You've got your probably your overarching big story, but within that are several little smaller stories. And so it's then being knowing which story to tell. But the ingredients of a good story, and I know Andy Harrington teaches this, and it's the hero's journey. You know, there is the main character, I think they call it the protagonist, and there's a central plot, you know, something, and there's a theme that runs through it, and there's conflict, and there's obstacles, but the hero overcomes them. And so it's having those steps are the key ingredients. But the most important thing is that your reader can identify with the hero. They see themselves as the hero in that story. They can relate to it, they can connect to it and go, oh, yes, that was me. Or that is me. You know, because they might be in the middle of the story, you know, in the obstacles and the hurdles. And they haven't quite yet got out of it. You know, and they can then see, wow, this is what that person did, this is what they learned. And then, as Brenda says, they can then step back and reflect. They're able to, because it stirs their own imagination. And then they can, you know, go, oh, wow, maybe I can get out of this after all, you know, and it gives them, it inspires them. But they can actually feel as if they're the hero of the story. They can connect. And I'd just like to share, I found something this morning from the National Storytelling Network, what they say, how they describe storytelling. And they say storytelling is an ancient art form and a valuable form of human expression. It is the interactive art of using words and actions to reveal the elements and images of a story, while encouraging the listener's imagination. And that's what you're doing. You're sparking their imagination. And when you can spark someone's imagination, touch their heart and help them to feel that emotion and see themselves in that story, that is the key to a great business story, a great key to any story. Because actually, you can weave in how your product or service has benefited the hero in that story. And so they go, oh, you know, they can sort of get a sense of the benefits. And they might want to then think, oh, maybe you're somebody I could work with, because they feel that connection. They get a sense of your values and what you stand for. And if it aligns with theirs, then again, you've got that connection. Because in your story, or any stories that you tell, your values come through and what it is, you know, that you stand for. So again, it's connecting all the time, you know. Yeah.
Wow, just so beautiful. I love hero's journey, and you can see hero's journeys everywhere, especially in movies industries, in books, and yeah, how to tackle humans' imagination. I believe that imagination is our biggest, most wonderful superpower, and it's just develops us, make us grow. It's beautiful answer. And Shireen, can you please share your insights? Thank you.
Yeah, I love what Caroline has said and what Brenda has said, because part of stories is to seed. In a way, we plant a seed with our stories so that people can follow the trails, so they can get an idea about how safe it is to follow that trail. But I think what is really important about a story is that we all are collective. We have a collective consciousness. And when we use our story, we are tapping into this collective unconsciousness. All of us have these other aspects that allow us within our unconscious that are the same as someone else. We all have a mother, a father, a prince, a goddess, all of these things, they're all there. And when someone goes, once upon a time, what happens is everybody moves in. They all start, and the brain actually goes, oh, I must pay attention. And that's what a story does. A story engages us, it brings us forward. And now, as we move forward, we are in the image, we are in the story. And actually, there's one thing which is really interesting. Neville Goddard, he always talks about that everything is about our imagination. Everything is about the imagination. So if we are willing to activate that imagination, then we will automatically go into the story. We will become that story. And the thing is to engage in that story in a very powerful way. And I think what's really important for stories is that when we do the hero's journey, we open up the idea of potentiality, where something that might have been blocked now has the potential to open. So someone may think, well, there's no way I can deal with my cancer, or they can't feel, there's no way I can do this. But the moment you hear a story, what happens is you go, well, maybe I'm going to listen more here. Maybe there's something here for me. And I think that's really where the story becomes incredibly powerful. And I think that, as Brenda was saying, it is about the learning. Yes, it's always about the learning. How are we going to use this story to be able to, one, promote our business? Because when we story, we're attracting our desired client. We're looking for the client that's resonating with our story. And that's why we talk about niching, because basically the people that will come to you are the people that will resonate with you and resonate with your story. And that's when your life's experiences come about. Yeah. So you have the life's experiences, you talk about it, and other people say, well, I've got a similar one. Ah, that's how she resolved it. Okay, I will follow that. And stories take away, remember I said stories take away that critical factor, so that when we hear someone's story that's similar to ours, we're more likely to trust them. We're more likely to trust them as opposed to someone whose story is completely different. So that's why it's so important to know your ideal client, know the story and the kinds of stories they tell themselves. Okay. So for example, with imposter syndrome, it's often the idea that people don't like me. You know, if I do this, they're going to reject me. Yeah. Or when I don't do an exam, it may be because, you know, what will happen if I fail is that the world will end. Those are stories. Those are stories we run. But when you hear a story that actually, you know, yeah, I had those feelings too, but I took it one step at a time. I decided to look differently and talk to myself. What happens is that starts to inform people. First of all, there's a difference, but I had some learning. And that's a key, because if they're seeing you had learning, they're going to model that, because that's how we learn. We've got special neurons in our brain that are all about learning and modeling and changing in accordance with our stories. So that's why stories are really very powerful.
Yes, amazing. Yeah, thank you, thank you, thank you, Sharon. This is great, and of course, it's so important to know your audience. Who are you speaking to? Because you are speaking to their heart. You're gonna just. It's not about you. It's about who do you want to help. It's amazing. And so let's investigate the other side of storytelling. Can you share, ladies? Why businesses are struggling with storytelling? What are like the most common mistakes, or why some people have difficulties with connecting to storytelling? What are do nots basically when you tell a story? Brenda, can you go first? Thank you.
Thanks very much, Nadia. Good question. And well, I've already said you don't know what you don't know. So some people go into business, and they go into business because they want to help people. They want to serve them. They've maybe had an experience. They've learned something, and they think, I can help people with that because I've been through it myself and I know what to do. I can help them. Maybe I can just show them that if they do X, Y, and Z, they can, start their own business. They can overcome the emotional state. And so therefore they're more thinking about helping people and sort of not putting the story near the focus of what they're doing. The stuff that they know it's there, but they forget about it, when you've got so many other things. But one of the reasons that people in business don't connect to their story is because we've mentioned it already, it's the pain. Because if you've got a story that's taking you to a really dark place, because the darker the place, the higher we bounce and rise, the more we learn, the bigger the struggle, the stronger we become. So perhaps, like, it's going back to what Shireen's saying about imposter syndrome and about perfection and about learning to be vulnerable. There's so much power in vulnerability. And if people in business can learn that, they'll free themselves from all the change. They'll stop imprisoning themselves because they're worried about judgment. They're worried about what people will say. They're worried about how they'll look to others. Very much all which is part of imposter syndrome. We all suffer from imposter syndrome from time to time. So when we are afraid, we've still got fear, we've got healing, we've got pain. We don't want to go there and use it. So they'll look at other ways. And of course you can, because when I teach my authors and clients about the power of story, we don't just look at their own story. That is the most powerful. Your own story is certainly the most powerful. But there's two other layers that I want to share, and that is go and find someone famous that people look up to who's got a similar story. There's loads of them. So when people, I'm very much the I can, not revolution, but an I can movement. We can do anything we set our mind to. There's a guy, and I'm going to get his name wrong because I can never remember the pronunciation, but it's Nick Chichevich or something like that. He's got no arms and he's got no legs. Now that man can do anything in the world that a differently abled body person can do. He can swim, he can dive, he can jump out of planes. He goes around the world, he makes fun, he uses humour. He's got a little flipper as a foot, and he calls it his flipper. And he goes, this is my flipper, this makes me swim. And then they show a video of him swimming and diving off like a 12-foot board. So if you want to use something about mindset and I can, if you don't want to tell your own story, go and find somebody else's story. Go and find somebody else's story, because people will relate to that as well. But remember, I'm saying the most powerful one is when you tell your story. But that's another layer. The third layer that I like to use, and I love the power of three, is metaphor. We've talked about metaphor already. So people can relate to metaphor. One of my favourite metaphors is feeding the wolf. It's usually a black and a white wolf. Well, there's an issue in that in itself, but it's feeding two wolves. And this again is all about mindset. So if you feed one wolf negativity and fear and all of that, what you're going to get, what one's going to serve you? Or if you feed the other one positivity and possibility and openness and frankness and vulnerability and happiness and all the wonderful things, which one are you, it's usually set to mindset, which one are you feeding? Do you have these dark thoughts all the time? Or are you daring to step outside of the norm and dare to think positive and dare to dream of possibilities and dare to take risk? Well, that's the wolf that's going to lead your life. So you can choose. And that's what's powerful. We have choice. And if we've got one other question, there's another thing I definitely want to get over about choice and about being an author of our own life and story. But certainly, if your own story is too painful, that's what stops people going there in business sometimes, or they're private and they don't want people to know. Remember, it's the most powerful. But if you need to work on that healing journey till you can talk about it in your power, then use someone else's story and use metaphor. We love metaphors. Great teaching tool. So for me, it's because there is a barricade, there's a glass ceiling, there's whatever you want to call it. There's something stopping us going within in order to influence and make a bigger impact on the people that we're serving.
Well, exactly that. It's, a lot of people are afraid to be vulnerable and really open up and show their true self, because we're afraid to be hurt. But if you really want to inspire, you really have to find that inner strength and courage to do it. And it takes experience and a lot of inner work. So yeah, thank you. Wonderful. Thank you. Beautiful answer, Brenda. And Carol Ann, what are do nots, mistakes when people are writing storytelling, just to help businesses to bring out the best out in them? Thank you.
Yeah, I'd just like to sort of pick up a thread, something from that Shireen said that tied in with something that Brenda said as well. Shireen said something about they can see, they can follow the trails that you lead. They can see that the trail is safe because they've seen you've been there before. And as Brenda was saying, maybe tell someone else's story, if not your own, of who's been through it. And it reminded me of a time when I was out down Cornwall somewhere, and I was on the coastal path, And I had my map, and I could see the cove that I wanted to get to. And on the map, I could see there was a pathway down the cliff face, or, you know, to that cove. But all I could see when I got to where I could see the cove itself, all I could see were these trees, and I couldn't actually see the path myself. And I'm going, I can see it on the map, but I can't see it there, you know. And then in that moment, I saw a couple of people emerge from out of the trees, from that path into the cove, onto the beach. And I thought, oh, there is a path there. So I was able to then continue. I found the path. It was perfectly easy path to follow. But I had to see those people emerge before I would believe that what I was seeing on the map was true, and that actually, yes, it was a path I could take, you know. So sometimes we do need to see other people who've been there, have done it, because maybe it's not that clear to us. It looks a bit strewn with obstacles and things that, God, I can't navigate that. Because to me, it looked really difficult. I was thinking, I don't think I can get through that and down, because it's quite a steepish cliff face, but the path, you know, wound around the sort of the contours. And so, yeah, I got there and sat on the beach. I was like, yeah, I did it. You know, so it shows people that it's safe because you've been there. And, but some of the key things, I loved what Brenda was saying about, you know, when we have these revelations, we then train in other modalities, and we know we can help somebody. And I've been this right from the beginning. It's like, you hear people telling they're upset, and you're going, oh, I can help you, and I know what you know they need, and they're going, no, thank you. Because you're saying what they need, and they're going, no, I don't want that. And the need and the want are not the same, you know. And it is through your story that they can actually get to hear, well, oh, maybe I do want that. Because what you've done is you've actually, you know, to start with, you've identified who you are, what you do, what are your core values, what's your culture, and all of that gets woven into your story. But it shows them the benefits of your products and how they can become amazing, how it can help them to become great, to become amazing. You know, again, it's all about them. And so it's been able to change that, what you see, they need this, and they're going, no, into, that's what I want. It ties in what they think they want. Because very often people, I want this and I want that. And you can see, well, actually, that's not what you need. And you have to really listen and be able to talk to their want, so they go, yeah, that's what I want. I'd like to work with you because you've got what I want. And then you sort of, if you feed in and support what you can see as a need, it starts to come out, you know. And that's the art of with the storytelling. But yeah, it's it is an art form. And if people can pick it up and make that shift, because I know it's taken me years to make that shift. And it's about listening, really listening. You can hear what people are saying, but is that what they're really saying? And it's being able to listen to what's really in the background, to what's not being said. You know, that's where the true listening is, and you get to know who your target audience is. And as it was Shireen was saying about knowing your target audience and really getting to understand them. What's their pain? What is their want? What is it that they want? So when you know them, you can then speak with them and connect. And again, it comes back to being able to connect and be in their world, and they feel that you are somebody they can trust. It's safe to follow you because you've been through the hurdles and out the other side. And you just show them the path.
Yeah, beautiful, Carol Ann. Thank you. So, guys, if you're really struggling to write a story, definitely learn how to listen. We all exposed to so much information. We know so much, but learning how to listen to your people that you care about and that you want to help, it's beautiful, so crucial. Thank you, Carol Ann and Shireen. Can you please share yours?
Sorry, can I just,
Yeah, sure.
there's something that's just come to my mind. There's something
Of course, yeah.
again, I read this morning, just read a little stat. It's actually that 92% of consumers want ads that feel like stories. 92%. I was like, wow, really? So that says it all. People want stories, or they want something that and even if it's an ad, it feels like a story. So again, it comes back to that feeling. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So powerful because, you know, just think about why people are addicted to watching movies or TV series, because every single one of them tells a story, and that's what we love as people. Yeah. So Sharon, go ahead, please.
Exactly. That's everything that everyone is saying here. Yeah, the story is the bridge between all the worlds. And yeah, I love the fact that, you know, I had a client this morning and I was actually remembering thinking, okay, she's not really getting what I'm trying to tell her. She's not generating what she needs to generate. So I said, okay, let me tell you a story. And I said, oh, let me tell you about this book I'm reading. And after I'd finished what I was telling her about the story, she said, oh, so you mean I must do this? I said, oh, how clever of you. Wow. So really it was about really just telling the story and then just waiting to see, because when you match the story to the lesson or to the bit, that's because you've listened and you've waited. Unconscious mind bring up a story. We've got thousands, as Carol Ann says. We have so many stories, but it's about what is the right story for the right moment that will bring that person to some kind of aha moment so that they get to hear it. And it was quite interesting because, I mean, eventually I just said, you know, all I did was after that, and I said, oh, and then what? And she said, oh, you mean I've got to take action? And I said, oh, well, maybe that'd be a good idea. So it was just really interesting in the sense of you can tell stories in so many different ways. But I think when you are willing as a person, as a company, as a, you know, in anything that you do, it's about wanting to bridge the gap so so that somebody else can truly understand. And you have this, it's an intentional bridging of the gap. It's not just a story for any old story, because we hear so many stories for any old story. Yeah, there's some people that like to talk a lot and don't really tell the story with intention. But if you say, okay, how can I help this person, or how can I do this? All of a sudden, a story will emerge, and it'll be just the right story because you've come from the intention of connection. You've come. It's almost like, well, I say a heart-mind meld. Basically, you go into their world, and you're actually asking their world to give you a story, so that you can match that story in a way that they can hear it. And I think that's a very, very powerful way. But I also loved your story you told about about going down to the cave, because I do a lot of walking too. And yeah, how many times have I gone and seen, oh God, you know, I don't know if I want to go down that path because it could be a little bit dangerous, or I can't find it, so I don't want to go. And then to have someone come in through and you see, there is potential. And I think that's really key. We do need to see people show the way. We need people, you know, good role models that are able to show the journey. Yeah, just to really let us know there's this potential. And I've been here, I found the way. And even if I didn't know the way, I found it. And I think that's a really powerful powerful message we can give. And, you know, we have to see to believe. What the brain sees, it believes. If you put on virtual reality goggles, you will get the same feeling as what's in your in the vision you see. So what we see, it takes a huge amount of brain power. So we use everything and we go into that world. So yeah, it makes perfect sense to work in that line.
Yes, amazing, and thank you, Sharon, because it's so important. Just to summarize this question, it's all about the intention and being vulnerable, as Brenda said, and it's yeah, intention is everything. If you're coming from the place of ego, all you're going to do, you're just gonna create more separation. You're not gonna connect with anyone. It has to come from the heart and your passion and love for what you're doing. Beautiful. So I think, Brenda, because you're an expert and like we all experts, but you wanted to you suggested a question. What was the question you wanted to ask? Because we have time for one more question. So maybe
I don't know if it
what was it?
What I wanted to talk about was the power of story to help us shape our own minds and our own thinking and our own action and behaviour. And it's very much in terms of storytelling. And you know, I really should be acknowledging what the two ladies are saying, because it's brilliant. Look, I'm making my notes. You know, I thought, oh, I need to use that in my work, you know. So I love the whole, I came up with this idea like stories in action. Stories create action. Just that is so powerful what Shireen said about you know, when you're trying to explain, and I know this is a teacher and working with special needs, you know, you've got to find lots of different ways to explain the same thing. And when you can come away from language, oh, well, if you do this, then, you know, have you ever tried this? People are shutting down. They don't want to be told. No. But as we said, with AI and with, you know, everything that's going on just now, the minute Shireen found the right story to show what that client needed to hear, because she wasn't hearing Shireen's words, even though I mean, I know Shireen, and Shireen's marvelous and brilliant at what she does. Sometimes they're not ready to hear the words in the way that we know and that we can share it. But when we understand the power of story, then when we know all the different elements, we have a story handpicked, because that's what I do with my clients. We handpick personal story, we handpick a famous person's story, and we handpick metaphor, and we work with the rule of 3 in each one. So therefore, we've so many stories, and we know when we need someone to hear a certain message, because the story is attributed to the message and the learning, which we talked about away in the beginning, then we are very powerful and influential, because we can help people see what they need to see through a story. Rightly said about watching movies and everything. We're very visual people, you know. But the point that I wanted to make, if that's all right, I know I kind of went on a wee bit there, is when we're telling ourselves crazy stories. So go back to the imposter syndrome, because I love the work that Shireen does. And, you know, we all suffer from imposter syndrome, myself included. And when we have these telling ourselves negative stories that, oh, we can't do something, who are we, we're not good enough, perfection, all those things that Shireen's mentioned, there's something I love teaching people. It's very simple, and it's called plot twist. So when you go from the unconscious to and your subconscious mind's telling these stories, and you bring it to your consciousness and you go, well, wait a minute, you just say plot twist. Now, if you've got nobody about, say it out loud, because hearing things is another added sense. And but if not, you just say, oh, wait a minute, plot twist. And then you realise, wait a minute, I'm the storyteller of my life. That's the power I've got on. I have the power to choose. I have the power to change. You can change the story that you're telling. So here's the little visualization you do. So you go plot twist, and I use right and left, depends whether you're right or left-handed. So I use left. That's where all my negativity lies. So in that negativity is a dark, dark, dark tunnel. And coming through that dark tunnel, and this happens quick, you know, if you're NLP trained, you know, the everything's instant. You bring the train out of the dark tunnel into the station where you are, the doors part, and you take that story you're telling yourself and you put it on that train. You don't go on the train though. You stay off, you separate it out, and you put that story on the train and you go, you don't serve me, you're telling me lies, bye-bye. The doors close and the train goes and it disappears back into the darkness with your dark thoughts. Now, the next train that comes back, the doors open. You've told yourself a new story. You've told yourself the possibility. What's the intention? What do you want to happen? Because we've got that power. We're limitless. Everything's possible. Nothing's impossible. You take the new story. You go on the train with this story this time. And when the doors close, it takes you to the light and to your destination where that story comes true and you live it in the way that you want it in your life. And I wanted to leave that today because we are the storytellers of our own life. We're the storytellers of our thoughts, and we can change them at any moment when we choose to want something more for ourselves, to want something better. And just take that new thought and go with it on the train towards the light.
Wow, beautiful. Yes, exactly. And then that's a wonderful example of, every single human being, every single one of us, we all have ups and downs. And of course, it's so helpful when we share these downs with people, so people connect. It's not only about all this beautiful, wonderful success and experiences. No, it's about being vulnerable and open to share the truth. What is the truth? Because that's how we connect. Really beautiful. Thank you, Brenda. And Carol Ann, can you please, how would you summarize? How would you inspire people to share the stories from the heart? What's your advice? Carol Ann, go.
You're muted. You're muted.
Oh, you're muted. Oh, you muted? Oh, Carol has. Oh,
I was muted. It's like, the internet goes on pause, the story goes on pause. I guess it's the same thing. Your story goes pause, the internet goes pause, and but you are the storyteller of your life, and you can recreate it, rewrite it, and I love that. What you say, Brenny said, plot twist. There was a game that we used to play at someone's event. I can't remember the person's name now. It's like it's eluded me, but he used to get us to tell a story, any story, and then you go change, and you change something in that story, and then you say again. I mean, it could be Little Red Riding Hood that you're saying, talking and telling that story, and you just say change, and you change something in that story, and then you say it again, and then change. And in the beginning, you're trying, oh my goodness, it's like, I can't do this. But after a while, it becomes fun because it doesn't matter what, you can change anything, you can get really sort of way out about it, but it helps you to realize that it is only a story and you can tell it. So yeah, plot twist. And I love what your process that you take them through as well. I mean, to take that to the light, it is that powerful. We are that powerful, and it is about our imagination. So it's cultivating your imagination, and some people find it difficult to see things because their visual sense isn't the strongest. So they may get a bit hung up on, well, I can't see this. But what are you hearing? Because maybe you're an auditory person. Listen to the words, because the words are speaking to you. And in some way that is creating a story within you that there's a picture going on somewhere inside of you that you're not actually conscious of. Or maybe you're more a kinesthetic person. So what are you feeling as this story is being told? How is it making you feel? And focus on that. Because again, there's a story being generated within you. And I love the quote, and I can't remember whose quote it is, but it's like, what the mind can achieve, what the mind can conceive and the heart can believe, you can achieve, So it's heart and mind together. Imagine it, hear it, feel it, and really believe it in your heart. And you can achieve it. You can change the story and realize you're the heroine in your own, hero or heroine in your own story. You're the creator of your life. Create it as you want. Yeah. And have fun with it. It can get so serious and oh my God, enjoy it. Have fun with it. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Why so serious? Yes, it's of course, and beautiful summary. It's all about emotions. If we wouldn't have emotions, wouldn't be able to make a choice. Emotions are driving everything. So powerful. And yeah, if you connect with the emotion of the end result of something that you want to create and create from that place, what beautiful story you can write and make people feel elevated. Beautiful. And Shireen, can you please share your word of advice? How can you inspire people to share their stories from their hearts? Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's just come from a deep desire that you want to match and be in someone else's world. So I think, like when we tell stories to children, we forget that there's a little child in everyone. And in actual fact, that is the place where the kingdom lives, and I think that when we allow ourselves to get back to that once upon a time, it inspires excitement, it inspires enthusiasm, and that draws us into that space. And I think that is what what would be the most beautiful thing. When you have a look at something that you're going to write, you start to think, well, now who's writing this story? What's she like? So you start talking to yourself in a very different way. And I think it's, personally, we are the creators of our life. We know that. But the problem is we don't believe it. We don't believe we're the creator. We think that we're stuck. But if we just do little things that allow us to play a little, change your voice, change the way you talk to yourself, interrupt the pattern. So like what Brenda did there, which was really good. The train comes in, you take something out, there's a space. You need to bring another space in with something new because nature doesn't like a gap. So you've got to replace what you've taken out so that you can begin to create anew. So I call happiness as how a powerful person simultaneously interrupts negative and installs new experiences super successfully. That is what happiness is, because everything, in a way, although we feel in our body, everything is in the mind. So as we create that reality, whichever way we do it, we're interacting with our heart, which then creates the feeling. And that's how we start to manifest our realm, our way within the world. So I think that, talk to yourself in an exciting way. Imagine you're talking to a child. I always love to, when I work with people, I like to see their inner child. If I'm starting to feel a little reactive, I immediately think, let me just look at them as a little child and look at how I would think about talking to them. So I'll lighten my voice, or I might do something slightly different. Or I might actually think, now's the time to crack a joke. I might do something that will just switch around, and you have to pivot. You part of change is always learning that you have to pivot. You have to move around things. It's never just a straightforward. It's often a round journey, very tangled, very often.
Yes, beautiful. Thank you so much, Shireen. And it's all about this inner child. As my mentor calls it, innocence. When we connect with that state of mind where we don't really judge, we don't have any preconceptions, definition, we're like empty, we're just like pure.
Yeah.
It makes so much difference.
So you said innocence, yeah?
Yes.
But what about inner sense?
Yes, exactly. Inner sense.
So you can interchange
Perfect.
those. Yeah.
Yeah, what a beautiful show. I really, really enjoyed it. So thank you so much, beautiful, wonderful ladies. We learned so much today, guys. Just remember when you are struggling to write a story, just remember intention, be authentic, be vulnerable, be brave. Because that's how you connect through emotions. It's all about the emotions and heart, as Shireen said as well, just feeling it in your heart, because that's how we truly connect with each other. So
Yeah.
thank you guys, everyone.
Thank you.
Is there anyone, would you like to add anything, Carol Ann or Shireen? Any last words?
No, I'm fine.
Perfect. We
No.
all feel complete. So you just watched and Ghosty Talk Show. If you want to join us, please reach out and leave a comment. And yeah, we look forward to the next show tomorrow. We're running shows every single day, Monday to Friday at 1 p.m. and share wonderful, tremendous amount of wisdom every single day about different things. Today we talked about storytelling, and I hope we inspired you. Thank you so much, guys, and see you